I guess one of the more difficult things to do is to talk real openly and candidly about death and about why people fear it, why people look forward to it, why there's a repressed drive to suicide. Thou art that. He posted a sort of a wonderful video response called Cosmic Meaning and Civilizational Suicide. And it was interesting to think about the death drive. And I think it may be some way different people think about it just so differently. And it maybe is that it's partly because we can think about death in the sense of I could die and can die, I guess, at any point. I could get struck by lightning, I could have a heart attack, a car can swerve out of its lane and come up into a sidewalk and take me out. And yet, that's so different from knowing as a fact that I will die, that my death is inevitable. See, this I can die at a certain place and at a certain time. It it's a different dynamic. It seems to play differently in the way we think about things than the fact of one's death, which I think many people they sort of associate with old age. They think, well, when I get old and then I die. See, they think that and then I die sort of comes after being old. And I think maybe that ambiguity is part of what makes for some of the slippage. I Boy, it's very difficult for me to talk about this. I think part of it is it's so easy to get taken out of context. That's why I'm reluctant to talk about it. But I don't want to say that I look forward to death. That's not the right way to say it. But let me, back up. There's such a wonderful way to come at some of this in Sufism, and particularly as it's rendered in Rumi, talks about the wedding night and death is the great finish line. It's the you you made it through the gauntlet of a trial by which a spirit made material could have whatever it was able to accomplish. And there's a kind of spiritual potentiality that was able to be cultivated and grown all the way along. I don't think one needs an afterlife. I don't know why people see. I think there are people who seem to think that other people don't get it. I think it's really funny. Like they want to say something like this: look, can't you see that if there's no God in some creator God way, like a guy in the sky who's looking down and making judgments, and there's no afterlife, that there's no record of any of this, like it won't be recorded, then once you're dead, none of it will matter. See, a person has this kind of argument there. And I want to say to them, yeah, but fortunately, your life is not just an idea to be thought about. See, I think other people, they don't get it. Right? Life is not just an idea. It's so much more than that. It's I think the more that one knows as a fact and just keeps that as a register that one will die, keeps that fact sort of as Carlos Castaneda would say, it's the shadow that's right there next to you at all points. Your death can be an advisor. If people would see it that way, it's not so fearful. It's the ultimate picture frame for rendering life meaningful. I mean, a person who doesn't think about their death on either an hourly or a daily basis, they probably don't ever have a meaningful life. It has to be, and it's not a gloomy, it's not like I have to go and do something I think if a person has afterlife beliefs, death becomes a perversion in their life. Yeah, the more that they think of it in terms of an afterlife, it just, their life becomes a kind of perverted dress rehearsal or one huge ulterior motive. It's like life is only justified by something other than itself. It's just so wrong. I don't think one can really see the absolute gift that life is, no matter how hard it is, without recognizing that ultimately you're going to get death in the end. There's no hardship, no no suffering which outlasts death. And the more that a person realizes that they're going to die in the end, you're going to get that. No one's going to cheat it out of you. You're not going to be denied it. I think once a person really drives that like a spike through their head, this is all icing. This is all, you know, it doesn't need an afterlife. I don't know where people get that. I think people have overdrawn expectations. It's, you know, I once heard someone say that the difference between a pessimist and an optimist is that if you give a pessimist a pony, they'll say, "Oh, it's a great pony, but look at all this horse shit that it leaves behind. I'm going to have to clean all this up." Where, again, that's the pessimist. Whereas an optimist, you could give them, you know, a trailer full of horse shit, and they're just digging through it happily, going, "There's got to be a pony in here somewhere." You know, it's I don't know how to say it, that there's a kind of irony in the person, and it's not to say let's be an optimist or a pessimist. I mean, I think that's, maybe it was a bad thing to bring up. It's a thought. You know, I don't know how to frame, how to say, I guess, what comes with death acceptance. I think once one really comes to terms with death, to me, two kinds of horizons open up. One is every conversation you have with other people takes on a new light. You realize that after you're dead, the things you said in the conversations you have will have some sort of meaning to the people who are still here, to the extent that life still goes on after your death. And is there a social world that could live many, many, many eons after your death? Oh, yes. Right? I mean, you can have great expanses and you can make a great impact on all kinds of people. But I don't think that's ultimately where you want to put your your meaning. You don't want to hang it on that. Instead, it seems like there's a kind of humility and a mundane acceptance of our, I don't want to call it trivial lot, but our humble lot in life. And it comes from what Suzanne Langer calls, you know, sharing our mud pies with each other and offering them up for each other's sympathetic consideration. You know, it's in doing those things that don't leave a solid item in their wake. So it's things like singing and dancing and juggling, as opposed to writing books, as opposed to making sculptures and monuments, things that last in time and transcend a given person. You know, a person leaves a monument with their name next to it. I don't think that's really what a person should be after. That's fine. People want to do that. I'm not going to tell them not to. I don't think that that's going to provide the kind of meaning that people are after. I think it has to do with, in the moment of right here, right now, asking yourself and really meditating on it, of who are you? What is all of this? It has to do with opening to the eternal in the now. It There's a great line by Wittgenstein where he says, "Courage is always original." Yeah, so many people want to be original. They want to be unique. You want to be unique? Have courage. You're not going to be able to rely upon yesterday's courage for today's problems. There's something about being courageous, about realizing, I don't know, the depth of connections that one can feel to all that is. What does it mean to say that one can feel a profound, deep love for strangers or even for people who don't like you? You have people who give you thumbs down and poofling, whatever they want to do, and to feel no hostility, to be unperturbed by it. How would one open, I guess, in, in compassion and love and mystery to one's own being, to all that's ever been? See, it doesn't have to be about anything like an afterlife. I don't know where people get the afterlife stuff. You know, I mean, maybe that really is the problem. Is death, fear, and the afterlife. But this cosmic angry beast that devours itself, chews itself up, and even waste becomes food. It's like a snake that sloughs off its old skin, and the death that it's sloughing off just feeds the next one. It's a hungry, angry animal, this devouring beast we call Earth. I don't know why people can't accept the pain, the hardship, and not accept it like, look, this is the deal, let's not try to alleviate suffering. No, but to see that there's more beauty if you actually take the time to look. There's more beauty than there is suffering. There's more opportunity to love, and love is richer, stronger, and more powerful than suffering. That's right. Many people can endure suffering through love, and oftentimes love is the source of suffering. Suffering is not the source of love, but love is the source of suffering, meaning that love is the larger set. And to say that one loves eternally, to love someone dead, to have a close friend die, to have a parent die, to have a child die. In all of these cases, it's the love that people are able to feel for the dead that's so miraculous and so powerful, and should help people celebrate the fact that they are alive, that they can love that deeply. It's not about people living forever. It's about organisms who are able to care to such an extent that this world can seem so unjust as to end it all. you know, I think the sense that life is so valuable and so precious that it ought not be tarnished or damaged at any cost is a kind of irony. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor, but you can imagine in the beginning, the one, the cosmic, all-knowing, all-powerful God. Again, I don't think it's a true statement. It's a metaphor, people. But if you imagine it, it's fun to imagine that the one thing that the God, the all-powerful, all-knowing, couldn't know is mystery, is trial, is vulnerability of being unlovable because you're unknown and mysterious. I don't think that it's a story about a fact, I think that that's a fun imagination pump that people can use to help try to make sense of all of this. You know, there's a big fireball up in the sky, and there's animals running around eating each other, and there isn't a person alive who really has the adequate context for being able to say what all this is. And it's interesting. You know, I think it's very interesting that some of the contemporary scientists who are eager to say there couldn't be anything like a God want to say that, well, we have evidence for parallel universes, and there's evidence that there's, I don't know, some parallel universe where I'm, I don't know, eating green eggs and ham, I guess. And although Green Eggs and Ham wasn't written by Dr. Seuss in this universe, you know, I mean, I think the more that people could celebrate the imagination, whatever it is, wherever this is, does it need to be, you know, some super fantastical miracle, some extra mundane? I mean, I don't know where people come up with these odd words like supernatural. I don't know where it comes from. It seems like nature's pretty super on its own. It seems like the fact that we are organisms who can be aware of our death, who can feel the way that we can feel, that should just be enough to blow anyone's mind, whatever a mind is. You know, I guess I wonder sometimes when people think about the world, you know, do they realize that, you know, maybe this is the only game in town? And when I say the only game in town, I mean not, well, let me say a couple of things about that. That I don't know if we really know who we are, right? I've heard some people say that we're reducible to DNA. I don't think that there's evidence for that. In fact, increasingly there is evidence that DNA was one of the forms that information can take, and it took on this planet. But you can have autocatalytic peptide strands that achieve the same functionality as DNA. Many people believe that RNA was a form of life that preceded DNA on this planet. There are, but the game that we're playing right now is this one here. And the question is, who are we? You know, are we the discrete bodies that we can see with our eyes? Should we trust our eyes? Could it be that humanity is a kind of biotic film? We're a tiny little film of thin, I don't know, a thin little strand of a certain kind of DNA that from the eyes, from the ears, has a certain sensibility toward distance, but as itself, it's a kind of, again, it's a biotic film on top of a many billion year old organism. That there's a many billion year old event going on, and it has many layers and stratifications of operations and processes and directionalities and expanses and contractions, and one of them is this, I don't know, like an eczema patch on part of it that is the human, or like a self-aware fungus growing atop a billion-year-old sleeping giant. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why people can't see the beauty of imagination as well. You know, religious stories they were some of the most creative, imaginative responses to this question: who are we, and why did we get here? Or, you know, how did all this come about? What is all this? And they were just celebrations of the imagination. And today we're so literal. We seem not to relish the imagination, but we relish debunking it. We take ourselves seriously in imagining that we're stepping outside of imagination. I don't think that it's true, but it's a wonderful thought to think that everything that is all just in the mind of God, and God is asleep, and everything is a dream. It's a dream in the mind of God, and when God wakes up, everything will disappear. You're not real. You're a phantasm being produced by a sleeping God, and if you're lucky, you will be perhaps remembered in the waking God's waking up, and will have a dream that will remember a dream that will have included you. Now, do I think that's true? No. I think that it's funny that some people don't think that's true while they believe in parallel universes, while they believe in multiple Big Bangs, while they believe in, I don't know, they believe in some other religious dogma. People jump from one religious dogma to another, and now I guess imagination is more grounded. It's more literal. We're pursuing imagination in terms of science, in terms of what we can imagine. Yeah, I don't look forward to death. I'm not eager to get there, but I'm not disappointed if it comes whenever it comes. I'm In some way, I've waited so long. I can't believe I'm still alive. Never would have thought I'd be alive this long. It's an eternity. When I was younger, I would have never, ever, ever imagined I would be this old. And I know that there are people who look at me and think I'm so young. Death is a very fascinating thing.